Good morning, I am Scott Hazelton. I am coming to you live from Keeneland Racecourse. Of course, for the second time in its storied history, we'll host the Breeders' Cup World Championships next weekend, Friday and Saturday, November 6th and 7th. Sadly, no fans this year in 2020. We all know why, but we hope that not in the not-too-distant future we're going to have fans back out here sometime next year. And also, the Breeders' Cup will be coming back here in 2022, which was just announced a couple of weeks back that the Breeders' Cup would come back for a third time. But just going back to the origins of the Breeders' Cup, John Gaines came up with the concept back in 1982. He wanted to create a Super Bowl for the thoroughbred industry. And boy, did they ever, because they launched it back in 1984 at the now sadly gone Hollywood Park, and it was an immediate success. We had brilliant performances, crowned champions, and that's truly what it was meant to do. And over the course of these years, these 20-plus years that we've had the Breeders' Cup, it's evolved into a two-day event with now Future Stars Fridays, showcasing the two-year-old races, the two-year-old future stars of this sport, horses that we'll see compete next year in some of the American Classics. Same can be said on the filly side of things when it comes to the juvenile fillies with Kentucky Oaks hopefuls. And also when you look at the European horses that have come over here, it really brings together the best of the best when it comes to the worldwide stage. And it all culminates with the Breeders' Cup Classic, which is worth $6 million. One race, $6 million is on the line, and that is the featured race of the entire weekend. We stand in front of the Breeders' Cup statue. This is the statue that travels each and every year to the venue that it is going to end up at. So, for example, when the Breeders' Cup wraps up here at Keeneland Racecourse, it will head to Del Mar, where it will take place in 2021, and then it'll make a quick trip back here to Keeneland for that 2022 return of the Breeders' Cup. We don't know where it's going to be in 2023. They tend to announce it a couple of years out, so we'll probably find out sometime next fall where it will be back as far as 2023 is concerned. But we're here at Keeneland, one of the most famed race courses in the world. We're going to take you on a bit of a tour here around the area if you've never been. If you have been, certainly you're familiar with it. The Sycamore Tree, one of the staples here at Keeneland. But as we look over this direction, just go ahead and point the camera towards the paddock. And this is the best time of the year at Keeneland, when the fall and the turn of the colors as far as the trees are concerned, and the paddock is just absolutely gorgeous. This is where they start their journey. The horses will be brought through that gap in between the saddling stalls there. They come from the barn side. The barn's on the other side of that structure there, as you can see. And what goes on, the horses will go into their designated stalls. They'll walk around. They'll be saddled up. And the trainers will make their last adjustments with the equipment that these horses will be wearing, and then they'll come to their designated trees. You can see the 1 and the 2, for example, would circle this tree, the 5 and the 6 down there, and the horsemen and the jockeys will gather underneath these trees, and they will put together their final game plan instructions when it comes to discussions. Obviously, the owners will be here. They'll get a chance to meet and chat with their riders. So this is where the final steps come into that final journey out to the racetrack when it comes to getting these horses ready for this big test as far as the Breeders' Cup is concerned. So they'll be legged up here. In years past, they would have been legged up here in this area, but as we've done it over the last couple of meetings during the summer meet and this recent fall meeting, they're legging up the riders here, and then they'll make their walk out here. Let's just go ahead and show you exactly what we're talking about as far as what these horses will be doing over the course of these World Championship races here at Keeneland. So again, they get legged up here. The jockeys get legged up onto their mounts. They'll take this walk. There'll be the folks that are allowed here, the owners and some of their friends and connections that'll be here. They'll be lined up here, and then they'll take this wide walk around the outside portion and then come through this tunnel. And this is where we're going to take you now to show you the next step here at Keeneland. And again, you can just see how picture perfect it is here in Lexington, Kentucky. It was a bit brisk this morning. We had some very cold weather this morning. I think when we woke up, we got here at 5:30 to watch a lot of these horses train here at Keeneland Racecourse. Got here at 5:30. The temperature was 30 degrees, and it only got cooler as the morning went on. But we're expected to see the weather really improve over the course of the week here at Keeneland for the Breeders' Cup, which is on Friday and Saturday. So we expect temperatures. They're talking about temperatures near 70 degrees, which would be fantastic because we've had some up and down weather over the course of this fall. We've had days where it's been 80 degrees, and then the next day we would see temperatures dip down into the 50s. But right now, walking through this tunnel, getting a brisk breeze coming in our face, but you think about the great champions that have made this journey. The horses like, for example, American Pharoah in his final start in 2015 in the first Breeders' Cup that was here at Keeneland Racecourse, walking through this tunnel, and the crowd that would receive these horses on a regular day, even during the race meetings, the crowds that line these rails on the clubhouse side over here to the left. Folks would be lined up here. The riders would come out with their jockeys. And in that tunnel, too, another thing, in the tunnel, as the horses come out from the other side, will be the ponies. So they've got pony riders that will lead them out for the post-parade and the warm-up. The ponies will be lined up right here. That's where they team up. The pony comes with the horse, and then they'll walk out here, make a quick left-handed turn out of onto the racetrack. Kurt Becker would announce that the horses are coming. Our track announcer would announce the horses are coming out onto the track, make that quick left turn, and then an immediate right, and that's where the post-parade would begin. And after that post-parade, after Kurt Becker goes through each and every horse, he mentions the connections, the jockeys, the trainers, the owners, of course the horse's name. He goes through that. We'll say how many minutes to post, and then the horses will break off for their warm-up. Now, if it's a sprint race, a shorter race, they'll go that direction and warm up on that turn, on the first turn, which would be in that direction. If it is a route race, a two-turn race, they would go in the opposite direction and warm up out on that turn before they would come back either to where the gate would be in the designated spot for a mile or mile and a 16th, or onto the turf course for that particular route race. And another unique thing about Keeneland Racecourse, we have two finish lines here at Keeneland. For example, if you're running a mile or a mile and a 16th race on the dirt course, you go to the first wire. You can see right there where the mirror is at, and that pole, that green and white pole, that would be the first wire finish that Kurt Becker would also mention in his race calls. If that was the case, they've gotten very clever here, as Keeneland always is, with just about everything, not just about every single thing. They'll put up this red target just to remind the riders, hey, this is the finish line, this is where you're racing to, because there have been times in situations like this, not necessarily here at Keeneland, in other racetracks, where jockeys will not be fully aware that that is where the finish line is at, or they forget it because they're in such a routine. So that's a reminder for them that that is the first wire finish for that particular race. But in every other race, the finish line would be another eighth of a mile down, another 16th of a mile down, rather, to that the post, the very famous post that you're so familiar with seeing around Keeneland. That is where the finish line would be for every other race, for the sprint races, for the 7/8 races, the Filly Mare Sprint, also for the big one, the Breeders' Cup Classic. So that is the finish line, which is right in front of where Kurt Becker calls. His stand would be up at the top there, top of the grandstand, just beyond those yellow railings is where his booth is at. And that's why it's so challenging for him to call these races on the first wire finish, because there is such a perspective, not an ideal perspective, but he does it so seamlessly, and he'll turn around and reference the monitor back behind him when he's calling these first wire finishes. But once the horses hit the wire, obviously once the race is declared official, the horses that lost the race, they'll come back here and team up with their grooms, their trainers. They'll line up on the outside rail here. The jockeys will jump off. The conversations will be had as far as what happened in the race. And then the jockeys will weigh in over here. They'll come, all the jockeys weigh in after the race, and they weigh in on this scale. Javier Torres is the clerk of scales here at Keeneland Racecourse, as he is at Churchill Downs. But this is where they weigh in, the official scale, and then they'll go back to the Jocks Room, which this year they are split up for social distancing. You've got Kentucky riders in one room, up another portion of Kentucky riders in a separate room, and then California and New York jockeys have their separate quarters as well. So trying to keep everybody away from one another. And then the winner. This is where everybody wants to get to, the winner's circle. This is where the celebration continues. Obviously, for those that won the race, the celebration carries on from the point till they hit the wire, to coming down here and getting their picture taken, to going off and celebrating their great victory in a Breeders' Cup race. And that is the great thing about the Breeders' Cup, as it has been since 1984. We crown multiple championships. It's not just one champion, we are crowning several champions because each and every one of these races is so important for the now and for the future, because these are the races that determine the horses that are going to go off to stud, for the stallion prospects, for the broodmare prospects that are going to be sold in the Keeneland Sales Pavilion at the November sale for millions of dollars. This is how the breed is shaped in these races and in these instances, and certainly at a race course like Keeneland. And when they said the Breeders' Cup was coming home for the first time in 2015, boy, did they ever make a truer. They never made a truer statement as far as that was concerned, because of the importance of the breed here in Central Kentucky, in the surrounding cities, Versailles, Paris, Midway. When you think about the stallions that stand there and the broodmare bands that are there, it certainly was a homecoming, and we look forward to it again next Friday and Saturday, as it promises to be a fantastic Breeders' Cup here in 2020. We hope that you enjoy it from home. We can't wait to have you back here at Keeneland Racecourse, and we certainly can't wait to have the Breeders' Cup back here in 2022 with a grandstand full of fans. I appreciate you joining me here this morning via Horse Country and, of course, Keeneland. We look forward to the Breeders' Cup and enjoy the Thoroughbred World Championships next Friday and Saturday.